Good evening, everyone. And thanks for coming out on a beautiful night. I should have actually held this outside. It would have been a lot nicer for everybody, but you know, the rain, we've had a lot of rain lately, so I didn't want to take that chance. But thanks everyone for coming tonight, because I think, you know, first, by the way, this is a great crowd, and I'm really, and for those who can't be here tonight, this is why we're taping it, so that people can see it at home. And I'm thankful and grateful for the work of the Foxborough Cable folks to be here tonight to tape this, because this is an important night for us as a town. This is something that I'm told has never really been done before, and this is to really start a strategic discussion about our finances. And so what I want to do tonight is to do a couple things. First of all, this is not going to be the last meeting. This is not the first and last meeting of this discussion. In fact, I think there's going to be a series of discussions that I want to follow up with. Tonight being more or less the foundation of the discussion, talk about a little bit about where we've been, where we are today, and where we'd like to go, and based upon what we know today. And then I'm going to open the discussion up for all of you to participate and give us some ideas and do some homework tonight. To leave this meeting tonight and say, okay, you know, based upon everything I heard tonight, what do we want to do differently? That's going to happen on, that answer is going to come on two different levels. One, what can we do differently in our own operation? There's a lot of operational folks here, and boards and commissions here. And two, what as a town can we do differently? Because the mission that we're under right now is based upon tradition that we've done here in Foxborough, as well as best practices, the management practices that a lot of us have come to know, and best practices that we've also come to know as well. So tonight's going to be the first in the series, and I think what I'd like to do is just to kick this off with a little bit of an introduction of the folks that are here tonight. And so we've asked a lot of folks to be here, and of course the Board of Selectmen are here. I want to introduce a lot of them are here tonight. Members of the School Committee, Board and Water Sewer Commission, Planning Board, Advisory Committee, School and Town Administration, and department heads. A lot of those folks are here tonight. So thank you all for being here and participating in what I believe to be a really important night for this community. So tonight's agenda is why are we here, or why did this meeting come about? What has been accomplished and what still needs to be accomplished? Is the town spending too much? Let's take a closer look at that, because that question got raised this past year and resulted in a lot of discussion and debate. And I think it's a healthy conversation to have, and I think that we should have it before we start the FY19 budget process. What is the town of Foxborough's true mission? What are we missing? What are the blind spots that we haven't hit upon? What are the things that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about? What changes, if any, are needed? And what is our plan going forward? Is providing tax relief an option we should pursue now? Should we reduce our spending or maintain, or should we improve town services? What are our cost priorities, and what can we do to reduce our costs? You'll find tonight that we're actually doing a lot of those things now. But is there something else we can do that can help that even further? Is growing the local and regional economy the best answer? And so let's go through this discussion tonight. And what I plan to do is take about 30 minutes to go through a number of slides that we've prepared. And then we'll open the conversation up for discussion and see where it takes us. Okay? So without further ado, why are we here? Well, during the FY 2018 budget process, the topic of cutting taxes was raised. Why do we need to levy to the limit? It's a good question. Can we cut budgets? Yes, we can. Should we cut budgets is another question. What is the best way to handle the excess stadium pilot payments? So there are years we get an excess amount of payments from the stadium. Should we use that in different ways? We came up with a way to address that in this past year, but there may be other ways we should talk about as well. After several public discussions, the Board of Selectmen voted, along with the support of AdCom and town meeting, to set aside $530,000, which essentially is 1.25% of the levy that we set aside into a special stabilization fund that can help us to pay for some capital improvements. The intent is to reduce borrowing for the next debt excluded project, which really is the Borough School. I think we all know about that. The savings to the taxpayers are already identified. in that effort. There's about $167,000 in interest costs, in addition to the $532,000 or almost $700,000 that we're going to save by doing it that way instead of borrowing the entire amount. So it was also resolved that we would hold a financial summit meeting, and that's why we're here tonight. This is not the first time I've personally done one of these meetings, but I can tell you that every time I've done one, it's taken the town to the next level. So this is why we're here. We want to have this conversation, an open and honest dialogue, and no idea is a bad idea. We want to talk with each other on a level where we're not being angry, we're just giving ideas and sharing thoughts. Okay? The other thing that's really important about having a discussion like this tonight is that we've done a lot over the past several years. And we have a great story to tell. We never tell it. We always talk about, we go to town meeting and say, after everything's done, this is how much more we're going to spend next year. But what did we do during the past several years? Well, here's a comprehensive list, and it's not the full list. It's pretty impressive, though. Town charter changed the town manager form of government in 2004. We centralized information technology with the town and schools in 2009. Consolidated DPW, highway, tree park, and water and sewer in 2011. We outsourced privatized solid waste collection and disposal in 2013. Established regional sewer partnerships with Mansfield, Foxborough, and Norton in 2014. And by the way, we just recently added Easton into that equation as well. This adds 380,000 gallons of new sewer capacity to the 450,000 existing, for a total of 830,000 gallons. That's a significant number that we should hold on to and talk about later on in terms of our economic development efforts. We moved all the municipal employees from weekly to bi-weekly pay. Seems like a little thing, but it was a very significant thing in terms of the cost of operating the town's budget, with the town's operations. We insourced payroll function and decentralized all payroll entries to departments from 2015 to 2017. We centralized facilities maintenance, town and school in 2015. Reorganized fire department management structure in 2016. Reorganized the police department management structure in 2017. And we've taken on regional dispatch in a partnership signed with Mansfield, Foxborough, Norton, and Easton in 2017. And are waiting anxiously at this point the word on a grant that'll be a multi-million-dollar grant to help us get that effort going. What's also been quite, we've been smarter in some of the things that we've done. We have a seasoned management team averaging 33 years of career years of experience across the top 13 Foxborough management positions. We have a permanent municipal school building committee, delivers remarkable value with each building project that we do. The town hall being the latest project of that, and the Foxborough school that's currently underway now. The pavement, and by the way, just so everybody knows, we hope to move into town hall by next week. So I know that question's going to come up tonight. I thought I'd get it out of the way right away. Yeah. Provided that we pass the test, right, Bill?
Oh, sure.
We've had a pavement management program in place, which is something that I recommend to any community in Massachusetts and anywhere in the country. We spent $6 million invested in the roads over the last 6 years. We created remote electronic monitoring of the entire water system, otherwise known as the SCADA system, 2015. New human resources departments centralizing policies and procedures in 2015 between town and school. Reactivated the personnel board in 2015. Held the first successful auction of real estate tax property in 2015, yielded several $100,000 in doing that. Held the first successful comprehensive 3-year update, resulting in award-winning land use master plan, 2015. Modernized townwide telephone and email systems, 2015 and 2016. Again, think a little thing, but actually a very significant milestone for us. Part-time electrical plumbing inspectors were changed from fees to wage-based, resulting in several $100,000 in savings. Achieved a AAA credit rating, saving $1.6 million in interest costs in 2016 alone. Significant. Town adopted by major policy boards and financial policies in the areas of reserves, free cash, contingent liabilities, capital improvement, planning and debt in 2016. Solar field revenue stream starting soon. Talked with the folks today. I signed, I think, the last documents today. We should be seeing the credits of the solar program in July and August of this year. that we will effectively wipe out our electrical costs for running the town, on both this town and school side. Significant. Outsourced janitorial work for major municipal buildings, the library, the town hall, and possibly the public safety building as well, working on that piece right now. Consistently bargain sustainable employee compensation plans, prudently managing 60% of the town's total budgets within its recurring revenue stream. That in itself is significant because there are a lot of places that don't do that. In fact, they negotiate contracts that the towns and cities can't afford. We haven't done that. Bargaining language consistent across all employee unions, consistent in contract agreements, so that we don't have different language in different agreements. So when we go to handle a grievance or handle a policy, it's consistent across the board, even though there are different groups that have different things in each contract. But we try to look for consistency wherever possible. So what's been accomplished as far as the economy? We reactivated a newly charged Economic Development Committee. One of the most significant committees I think we've established in the past few years. Why is because now we're looking into the future as to how we're going to actually handle our economy in the next 20 years. Gillette Stadium has created investments in Node 1, new 1,000-person capacity field viewing lounge, 4 new supersized luxury boxes, new cross-pavilion corporate function facility, new administrative office additions to the stadium structure, and another announcement to be made very soon regarding medical facilities up there that should be out by as early as next week. Another major investment. Downtown redevelopment, mixed-use overlay district created in 2015. Another significant milestone because that's the way downtowns are built, with mixed use. Snyder Electric spent $30 million and built an office complex in investment in node number 2, and moved and centralized all of its operations in Foxborough, and that was done in 2016. It was completed in 2016. Patriot Place has built a new 136 new room Hilton Garden Hotel in 2016. The long-term liquor license strategy was established by this board, by the Board of Selectmen during the past 2 years. And we actually got 9 new licenses in the process to do that, to help stimulate new development. Forbes Crossing is now under construction with a 139-room Hampton Suite Hotel, and that'll be completed by the end of this calendar year. 3 new restaurants, plus 3 existing restaurants, and renovation of the entire plaza. New traffic calming roundabout was done with a grant, $625,000 grant that we achieved through the state. Again, it's a very important piece of work that was done there. And then, not last but not least, 248-unit 40B condo complex, otherwise known as the Domain, was built in Node 3 and is complete. Will be complete in 2017, 2018. Other recent investments in town assets, money that we spent on ourselves. Now, this is what's significant about this is the fact that if the private sector sees us reinvesting in ourselves, they will invest in us. And the return on investment is extraordinary. It's actually $1 to $8, $8 to $10 per investment that we spend. So by us doing that, we've leveraged new investment in the community. Go ahead. Yeah, come on.
Sorry.
Okay. So one of the recent ones, the things that we've done, new multifunctional financial system and townwide fiber network, new joint public safety building, 119-space resident-only commuter parking lot, high school renovations in turf field, library renovation expansion, new water treatment plant, expanded recreation complex, water tank refurbishment, centralized data center, new DPW administration building, pavement management, Route 140, water main replacement, major heavy equipment vehicle replacement, and new town hall, which is the Crown Achievement, which has been done in this past year. Again, in other areas, savings, direct savings to the taxpayers. We negotiated stadium lease agreement in 2006, yielding an additional $1.5 million to date. OPEB funding strategy, little discussed on any level, but probably one of the biggest savings we've ever achieved. OPEB funding strategy and health insurance plan design, which most places don't even touch. Design changes have already reduced the liability from $62 million to $22.7 million or $39 million since 2009. It's extraordinary. Extraordinary, because if we maintain that liability, everybody in the town will be still paying for that over the long term. Loss Control Committee continues to drive down general liability and risk, resulting in reduced growth in general insurance and workers' comp premiums, $50,000 savings per year. We consistently win that award from Maya on that. Veterans benefits providing highest level of relief in the town's history since 2011. Thank you, Mike Johns, for that. Split tax rate, maintaining consistent share of tax burden between the residential and businesses. $203 average residential savings annually, started in 2012. Refinancing eligible town debt yielded $1.7 million in direct tax and rate-paying savings since 2012 and 2015. We basically took the bonds that we had and went out and refinanced them, just like people do their homes. Only found out we got a better rate. $800,000 in low-interest private sewer system replacement loans. Town hall debt funded with included debt within the budget resources, a $515,000 investment in the first year. $1,200 total savings to average taxpayer, or $60 per year, because we did it within the tax levy. We didn't do an override or a debt exclusion. We did it within the tax levy. The AAA credit rating alone saved $1.6 million. It was added earlier, and that was for Town Hall and Pumping Station Road, and that's just for 2016. Forget the ones going forward. We haven't talked about those yet. Free kindergarten, pending continued financial support of the LRP, of $3,000 per student, savings per student to families who have kids in kindergarten. And the senior tax credit program has raised the maximums allowed by law in 2017. What still needs to be accomplished? We still got a lot of work to do, folks. I mean, there's lots been done, but still a lot to be done. Economic development, the train, light rail, bus corridor connecting all 4 nodes currently under review. This is big. If we achieve this, that will trigger economic development on Route 1 like we've never seen before. Major mixed-use development of Route 1 development, anticipated to start in 2017, 2018. Other Route 1 development is also under consideration right now. That is, it's not part of that particular project, but in other projects. Downtown revitalization, we've invested $550,000 to build a new sewer connection, which will then trigger the fire station and former funeral home redevelopment in 2017 and 2018, we believe. Strategic deployment of new town liquor licenses, that started in 2017, so that's going to be on the shelf and available for those people that want to develop in the downtown. We have those licenses available. We retooled our zoning approaches, 2014 to present, all thanks to the new master plan that we've just developed, and to the efforts of the planning board to try and modernize the approach that we're using in land use. The Route 140 State Highway and Tri-County Corridor started in 2016 by the state. That's in Node 3. And we're addressing the town center parking deficiencies. In other words, there's parking all over the downtown. We just have to make sure we find it and make sure we get direct people to where those areas are. People get lost when they go to downtown sometimes looking for spaces when in fact there's plenty there. Other thing, the property, 2 solar projects of $3.8 million. That will generate $7.4 million net to the town over 20 years. It's near completion, and we should be up and running this year, next few months. New Pumping Station Road water treatment plant, $16.7 million, destined to be completed in 2019. The Borough Elementary School, which is currently being evaluated and under review with MSBA right now. $15 million project with 50% state funding. That'll be completed in 2019 as well. Taylor Elementary School, to be determined, but it's something that we still have to keep on our radar screen. To complete the high school turf field, complex and high school campus. Still under discussion. Not everybody's on full support about it, but it's something that's out there. It's been started. Should we consider further to find a way to get a way to get that done? A fire substation on southeast side of Foxborough. We know that the call numbers for the south side of Foxborough are going to continue to grow because we're developing on the south side of Foxborough right now. So if we don't put public safety on that end, it actually creates an extended period of response time, which we want to try and address and trim that back. And there's ways we can address that progressively. Walkable sidewalks and the complete streets program, things we're working on currently right now. Maintain the funding of the road maintenance program. Something, once you start, you're going to stay with it. You have to consistently put money into it. Increase stewardship of conservation land. We've got lots of conservation land in this town, probably more than most places I've ever seen. But what do we need to do to maintain it and to make it useful so people can enjoy it? Town-owned cemetery repair and preservation program. I remember seeing a presentation before the Board of Selectmen during the past few years. The condition of the stones is starting to really deteriorate. We have an obligation as a town to take care of that, to address that. Those are our forebears. We have a responsibility to address that. So it's a cost that we need to look at. Memorial Hall part-time staffing for increased hours and utilization. That's the history of the town, folks. That's what we're all based on. And we have a tremendous opportunity and asset in the community, but yet we don't do anything to try and let people use it as often as they could. We should. Continue to address abandoned buildings. So we've got a few of those. We've done some things. We've torn down some things. We've still got some work to do in that area. And then further, build reserves to reduce future borrowing in buildings and repairs so we don't have to borrow as much. Continue to build those reserves. Operations. Upgrade public safety communications network. Absolutely needed. Develop a comprehensive geographic information system and support staff. Something that's direly needed if we need to understand where all of our utilities are kept and how we can best utilize our public safety network, as well as all the services that we provide for people in the community. Increased investment in technology and support staff. The world of technology is here. We need to embrace it. We need to take hold of it and use it in the best way we can to deliver services. The other night I saw some criticism because I said we're providing better services to public and putting stuff on the internet. Well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? I thought we're trying to make things more convenient for people. Not supposed to make it harder for people to get their services. Make it more convenient for them to get it. Monthly water meter readings and billing capabilities. That's the water the commission wants to do, to make it easier for seniors so they can pay their bills. Modernize electronic bill paying capabilities so that people can do it from the comfort of their own home. Retool website presence. Funding was provided in the FY 2018 budget, so we're going to do that. Establish an economic development staff presence. We have a tremendous committee in place, but we don't have a staff presence. We have somewhat of a staff presence, and she wears about 4 hats. And we all try to pull together and work on that, but that's a key to how we're going to continue to grow the economy locally, which will certainly help our position in terms of dealing with taxes. Provide an adequate level of administrative support in identified departments. There are still departments that don't have adequate support. We know that, and I don't need to tell you that. The departments themselves will tell you that as to what's going on in their operations. And we need to provide appropriate highway department labor support to maintain the fields and streets that we currently have. We continue to grow fields. We take on new fields. We take on more streets. New streets come on. We still have to maintain those roads. Expand sewer infrastructure and fully deploy the SCADA system to make that much more modern. And we've made some tremendous strides in that, and I really appreciate that direction. We still have unfunded mandates, stormwater management, MS4 regulation. That's a tremendous cost to all the communities in Massachusetts and throughout the country. Dam rebuilding, we've got a few of those, and we're trying to address those one by one. And process state and civil service work based on reduced state support of the program itself. At one time, the Department of Civil Service and Department of Human Resources in Boston had I think there was probably close to 150 employees in that department. There's now 5. So that means, guess who gets to do the work? We do. So it's a very old system. A lot of us are trying to get out of it because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But still, it's there, so we still have to do the work. And implement an ongoing changes to the federal wages and hours law. Those laws change constantly to the point where we constantly have to update our ability to make sure we're in compliance. And if we're not in compliance, guess what happens? We get fined for doing that. So we don't want to be in that kind of a position. So is the town spending too much? Let's put some context to that. No general overrides in Foxborough ever. 10 of the Foxborough's 15 surrounding towns have general overrides averaging $4.4 million. And 3 of the 5 that didn't have overrides have asked voters for overrides, but didn't get them. 259 of the 351 communities, or 74% of Massachusetts towns, have general overrides averaging $2.9 million. Comparatively, Foxborough's property taxes are very competitive with surrounding and similar towns. And Foxborough has 11.6% less taxable property compared to the average of our 15 surrounding towns. So let's understand that. Of all those towns that surround us and they've actually gone for overrides, the community of Foxborough has never done that, but yet we have less taxable property than they do. So have we used our resources wisely? The answer, I think, is yes. If a rigorous and cooperative annual budget process looks at that very, very consistently, every single year, and it's important to recognize the Finance Committee, who looks at this, and the Audit Committee, and the Selectmen, and the School Committee, and the various boards that go through that painstaking process every single year, because we have to. We have a responsibility to do that. We should do that, and it's the right thing to do, and this town has really profited by that in terms of having the right services. Everything's been right-sized because we pay for things the right way. So in short, the bottom line to all of this is that Foxborough is living within its means under the tax levy, unlike 74% of the state. And the town's budgeting process is a thorough and cost-conscious effort. So the thing about that is that our tax rate is a fair tax rate in comparison to the surrounding cities and towns that we have near us. With respect to policy, the town boards unanimously adopted responsible financial policies in the areas of contingent liability. We're paying our OPEB liability now. Pension funding, we're funding at the ARC with full funding by 2031 and 2038 for the OPEB. Now, what's extraordinary about that is that we're paying for the future of the next generation. There's a lot of places aren't doing that. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of places that are not paying for this. They're ignoring that liability. We've chosen to pay for it and not put our kids in that kind of a situation. Borrowing's been a responsible level and prudent and of a mix of excluded and included AAA rated debt that keeps the tax burden to a minimum. And that's reflected by our bond rating agency. They tell us that we borrow the right amount of money. We don't over borrow based upon what our ability to pay is. Our operating reserves are tight. We have tight spending controls and only minimal reserve levels. We've done an extraordinary level. I think the job this past year. Management team has done a tremendous job of managing their budgets and has tried to minimize the number of reserve transfers that we've had, probably the lowest we've ever seen this past year. We've done a terrific job of that. So, free cash. Local receipts budgeted conservatively to generate a necessary amount of free cash to fund the following year's operating and capital budgets. We try and strive for $1.5 million every single year as the usual annual target for this amount of money. If we fail to under budget, purposely budget is the right number, if we did that additional revenue would disappear, and the town's financial flexibility and stability would actually be impacted by that rather unfortunately in the wrong direction. We've created stabilization. We have a core. We maintain a stabilization fund of 5% of the operating budget on an annual basis, and we up that whenever we have to make sure we maintain that level. The capital is funded when able, currently at $1.1 million, and we buy the things we need to buy, and we go through a rigorous process of evaluating those items as well. We're not just buying things because we really like to have them, we're buying because we need them. So in short, these financial policies require fully funding of liabilities, limits on the use of debt, and mandate reserve levels. The result is a fiscally conservative stewardship of the town's resources. This is what we know today. Can we do it better? Perhaps. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Is the town spending too much? Well, here's the history. This is a tough, difficult slide for everybody to follow. But here's the general point. The general fund budgets have grown at a total of 4.7% on the average over the last 10 years. Put that in context, And talking to my colleagues around the state, the average number is supposed to be somewhere between 4 and 5%. We're right there, we're at the 4.7% number. Fixed costs are about 6.75% or $6.22 million. Debt service is $5% or $1.2 million. On the municipal side of government, it's 4.99 or 6.1 million. On the school side, it's 3.9% or 10.4 million. This is over a 10-year span. The health plan and redesign, the loss control committee efforts have saved millions. And what I mean by that is that our employees got together with the unions and the various employees have gotten together, and we've renegotiated the plans. Plan design has changed to the point where now there is more money more responsibility placed on the employees themselves, but it's saved the town millions of dollars in terms of what we have to pay to support those programs. And our debt refinancing, AAA credit rating have also saved us millions on top of that. We talked about that earlier. Is this town spending too much by division? Well, we take a look at general government, public safety, public works, human services, culture and recreation, Foxborough Public Schools, and total division budgets. In total, the division budgets grew by 4.2% annually on average over the past 10 years. Human services grew by an annual average of just under 8% over 10 years, led by increases primarily in veteran service and council on aging because we didn't have enough people to run those operations. We're now running them a lot more responsibly than we have, and we're providing the level of service that people want. It's being reflected in the amount of benefits that we're able to provide to people on many levels. General government grew at 6.8% due primarily to establishing a central maintenance department. That was a big number that grew in that particular area. And public safety grew at 5%. Public schools grew at 3.9%. That's extraordinary. People talk about that, we spend a lot of money in schools. Yeah, we do. But we should. It's a good investment. That's why people come to Foxborough. 3.9% is extraordinary in what I've seen as compared to other communities. It's a good number. The public works has grown at 3.7% average, less than average. We're not spending a lot of money in that area. Compared to what we have a lot of roads, we have a lot of fields, a lot of things to maintain. And by the way, they do a terrific job. I mean, I look at the quality of the fields and the facilities, and I look around and I say, wow, this is great. You don't see that everywhere you go. Culture and recreation grew by 1.8%. Should we spend more there? That's the conversation we're going to have. Is that right? Is that the right number? Maybe it is. Health insurance and pension costs drove $5 million or 80% of the $6.2 million increase in fixed costs. The county sets that number for us. We don't set that number. So when they tell us this is what we have to pay, this is what we have to pay. They're driving that number at an increased rate of a point where that number's going to go away in less than by 2031. So, which means that once that number goes away, guess what's freed up?
Millions.
Annually is right. So we pay it, and then it's driven down the cost of operation rather significantly. Health insurance plan design or cost shifting to employees and retirees is saving the towns millions of dollars. Large increases in pension assessment are paying down the unfunded liability by 2031. OPEB liability is being funded at the ARC. There's only 25 communities in the entire Commonwealth that's doing that. And one of them actually did it by an override. Foxborough's doing it by our operations. Loss control committee efforts are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in general just insurance premiums each year just by the extraordinary work they're doing. Should we provide tax relief? It's a revenue, and look at the revenue trends. General fund budget revenues have grown at a total of 4.5% on average over the last 10 years. Taxes by 5.2% or 17.3 million. Net state aid is flat. In local receipts by 7.5% or $4.8 million. Other sources by 900,000, with 60% of other sources growth from ambulance receipts. If we didn't have the ambulance receipts, our capital program would have cost us a lot more. And we'd be biting into other areas to pay for that. Now, what's significant about the state aid figure, with state aid not growing, there's a higher reliance on local receipts and taxes. This question got asked during the past year, and I won't put anyone in the spot by saying this, but this question got asked. Because we have all this revenue coming in, why aren't we doing better? Why aren't we driving costs down? State aid. What happens, our state aid goes directly to the charter schools. 98% of our growth in state aid over the past 10 years has gone to the charter school. 98% of all our growth. So we're not getting any new money from the state each year. It's going directly to pay for the charter schools. Conversely, if we took those 120 students and put them back into our system, what would it cost us? $100,000 maybe for that? Instead of paying millions of dollars. Because we could do it because we already have the programs established. Now, people have a right to choose, right? They absolutely have the right to choose. And I don't deny anyone that ability to do that. And in fact, nobody here is saying that the charter school isn't a good program. It's a great program. It's how they charge us to do it is the biggest problem we have. That requires close monitoring and something that we should absolutely be pursuing as a community, as a state, to try and find better ways to pay for that. Because it's taking bites out of our organization to do our regular, normal work that we like to do. Millions and millions of dollars go into that program. When in fact, we have a great school system. So we get hurt in two ways. In fact, and again, this is not a slam at the charter school, but this is another problem we have. They're expanding. Right? On top of that. And guess where they took the expansion? Into industrial land that we already had on the tax rolls. Now it's off the tax rolls. So we lost both ways. We're going to get charged more for the expansion, and then we're going to get charged, and we're being charged on the assessment. So it's a double whammy for us in that regard. So it's something we really have to pay close attention to, and something we really need to address over the long term. State aid. State aid revenue growth is anemic at less than 1%, and that's the discussion I just had. The state assessment growth averages 4.1% over the same period, and so therefore we're losing and ultimately when that happens. The charter school assessment has grown at $510,000, resulting in relatively flat state over the last 10 years. Net charter school assessments across the state have absorbed 43.4% of all increases in Chapter 78 over the last 14 fiscal years, or $3.3 billion. The town of Foxborough's experience is even worse. 98.2% of all increases in Chapter 78 over the last 17 years is being diverted to the Foxborough charter school system. That's $19.2 million on Chapter 7 growth versus $18.9 million in net charter assessments in Foxborough. So $300,000 over 17 years. You can't do much with that when you have that level of impact. And that's why we have to pay more. And thank God we do have the other revenue sources, because that would cause a significant uptick in terms of how we provide our services. What is the town's true mission? This is where it gets interesting. Promote further business investment in Foxborough, something we should do. I think we should, but that's up to you to decide. Attain level of taxable property value that will allow us for not levying the tax limit to the tax limit. That's one major goal that I think we hope to get to. There's only a few people, and the only few places in the Commonwealth that actually do that. Cambridge, Dedham, places like that. You don't charge the full levy, because the value of the property has reached a certain level. You don't have to charge the full levy anymore. And it doesn't hurt the budget process. What service levels are acceptable to the community of Foxborough? Reduce service levels? Where? Tell us where. Increase service levels? Tell us where. We increase service levels based upon what our departments tell us. And then you all react to that through the process that we have. So when we present our budgets collectively, we make the case, and if you agree with the case, then you do it. If you don't agree with it, it doesn't happen. That's the democratic process we have. Maintain expensive assets and replace as appropriate. One of the best things you've ever done is create a centralized maintenance operation. It will pay you dividends for many, many years to come. You're taking care of what you got, making sure that it doesn't break down as often, and you're doing preventive maintenance. Well, this is a novel idea, right? Don't we do that on our own homes? Preventive maintenance? If you do that, guess what happens? Things last longer. So we're doing all those things now. That's a very important step. Maintain adherence to adopted financial policies. Well, that's the reason why we get a AAA rating, folks. We get the AAA rating because Moody's said to us, or Standard & Poor's rather, said to us, if you have these policies, they will live well beyond any one of us. You reduce them to writing, and therefore you can actually live by those policies going forward into history. Maintain the highest credit rating. Well, yeah, that saves us money. That's why it's important to do that. It absolutely saves us money in terms of our borrowing costs. Pay employees competitively. Well, yeah. When we don't do that, guess what happens? People leave. People get fired. We end up with people that are not as good performers. It's not always 100%. We get that, but generally speaking, that's what history shows. Pay people competitively, work with them, give them a good working condition. They'll pay you back in many times over. Pursue additional regionalization opportunities. Absolutely. We are doing probably more in this area than anybody else that I know of right now, and we're going to do more because we're always talking about that at the staff level. What can we do more with our neighbors? We shouldn't have to do it all by ourselves. Public safety, dispatch, assessing, any one of you name it, health issues, health services. What can we do on a regional basis? This is a good example. Yesterday, Paige and I were up in Acton, Mass, talking to the town of Acton about how they provide the connection between a train service and to their employees. And here's how they did it. They used existing services within their own town to do it. You currently have a Council on Aging van. The Council on Aging van runs from 8 a.m. in the morning till 4 p.m. in the afternoon. When do people take the trains? 6 to 8, 4 to 6. They took those same buses and used them to pick up people at the train station and brought them home. Or brought them to a central location where they could park their car. Novel idea, not an expensive option, but something that was a good use of existing resources. So something else that we can do to make better use of our existing support mechanisms. Explore optimization synergies amongst existing services. How do we get other departments to work more cohesively and not duplicate services? Working across the town lines and departmental lines to try and get better cooperation, which, by the way, is in this town is extraordinary, by the way, I will say that. But we're always looking at ways in which we can improve that. Because if we don't do that, we're duplicating the cost, and we don't want to be doing that. That makes no sense. What is our plan going forward? The long-range plan operating. Revenues are forecast to grow by an average of 3.81% over the next 5 years. The largest annual revenue growth of 5.4% is by FY22, and is driven largely by the new growth taxes related to anticipated Route 1 commercial development. We think this is going to happen. And if it does happen, then we're in a pretty good position. Because what happens is that once we reach that point, expenses are forecast to grow by an average of 3.5%, assuming no significant increase in services staffing levels, which means that we'll be able to levy below the 2.5 level mark. That's our goal. We've talked about that, and that's something that we should be striving to achieve. Long-range planning capital. Town's 5-year capital plan is balanced based on 10 different funding sources of $33.1 million. Combination of state grants, $10.7 million. Excluded debt, $11.1 million. Meals tax, $1.7 million. Ambulance receipts, $1.5 million. Capital stabilization, $1.1 million. That's a number we should grow, by the way. Sale of assets, $500,000. And miscellaneous sources, $418,000, fund most of this plan. Free cash totals $6.1 million, provides the balance needed to fund the plan. So free cash helps to support the budget. It also helps support our long-range capital needs. What's the plan going forward? New growth. $200 million of the $260 million in taxable new growth value in fiscal 21 and 22 is associated with the anticipated investment on Route 1. So we're banking on that. If this changes, that puts us in a little different perspective on this. But I think it's fair. It's a fair assessment at this point in time. That's why we're so keen on moving in that direction, because we're not thinking about tomorrow. We're thinking about 5 years from now. We want to be in that position to anticipate that growth so that we can be in a position to make sure the budget stays balanced and we're not levying to the max. That investment will be the determining factor in the town's ability to not level to the levy in fiscal 22. Stadium payments. Stadium pilot payments have been unpredictable, averaging $2.9 million over the last 5 years. They are higher than previous years, no question about it. And the direction seems to be healthy. However, they are forecast to grow by only 3% annually, based on everything that we know today. Local receipts are budgeted conservatively in order to generate necessary free cash to fund the following year's operating capital budgets. $1.5 million is the annual free cash target for this source. Not under budgeting this revenue source would create a significant budgetary challenge in the following year and take away the town's financial flexibility. So what happens when we mean by that? Well, we run into situations where something doesn't come in the way we anticipated, so we have flexibility in that free cash number. It's like a toggle switch. It goes up and down and keeps the budget where it should be. So we don't run into major crisis situations where we need to tap into stabilization funds, other resources that we have in place. Free cash is generated by three primary purposes: funding the next year's operating budget and capital budgets. Estimated annual need is about $1.6 million and $2.6 million. Fund the one-time needs, contract settlements, stabilization reserves, etc. Financial stability in times of financial stress, 5% of general fund budgets is optimal, or $3.4 million. Just want to say something here because I want to take a break because there's a lot of numbers here, right? And I don't expect anybody to remember these numbers tonight. So what we're going to do, we're going to put this on our website tomorrow morning. And anybody who wants a copy of this presentation will have it on our website. If anybody wants a printed copy, please see us tonight, leave your name, we'll be happy to get it to you, okay? Because there's a lot of information, but I didn't want to print all these documents and then everybody going through them tonight, saying then, it would have been, I would have lost you in 10 minutes, an hour ago, put it that way, half hour ago. So, the first year of the meals tax revenue for Foxborough was fiscal year 2012. Great decision by the town, by the way. I think it was a very responsible vote. The board voted the policy to dedicate these funds to OPEB liability and road improvements. Again, another very responsible action taken by the town. If you're going to take a revenue source like that, know where that money's going to go. Because what happens otherwise is the money goes right into the general fund and you never see it again. Right, so make sure you dedicate that resource because that was an important step. $7.3 million is intended for OPEB and $3.6 million for roads. Any balance has gone to roads. OPEB may be increased funding in the future to maintain funding at the ARC. The ARC may go up based upon cost of health insurance because that continues to rise. If that happens, then we have the ability to tap into that to drive that number up. Now what's also important here is that if our roads get to a point where they're maintained at a certain level, and Roger Hill and I have talked about this, and I think some of you, we've shared it with some of you as well, we may not need as much money to maintain the system, maintain the roads at that level. So which means that we won't have to spend as much. We may not have to spend $1 million, we could spend, $700,000 or $800,000. But the other thought could be, then we fix our sidewalks. So we continue to use that as an infrastructure maintenance program and continue to use that money in the right direction. Ambulance receipts are voted at town meeting to fund the fire department operating budget. In addition to the primary purpose of funding new ambulances on a 6-year replacement schedule, the growth of this important revenue source is enabled to fund all fire capital equipment, freeing up free cash for other town-wide capital needs. This has allowed the town to make progress in many deferred capital needs. So thank you to the fire department and to and to the services they provide, because they're basically helping themselves to maintain the services that they currently provide. Reducing the levy limit increases from 2.5 to 1 down to 1.25, starting in FY19 and continuing through FY22, would eliminate free cash balance completely in 4 years. That's why we were so opposed to doing that, because it didn't make sense to do it now. There was different variations of that. If we did it for 1 year, yeah, that's true, but we don't want to do one-offs, because if you do one-offs, then you have to come back and you have to fix it the next year, which means you have to bring it back up to 3.75 in order to drive the cost, to maintain that level of cost again. Otherwise, you're going to continue to deteriorate year after year after year. This would eliminate the prospect of not levying to the levy. I'm sorry. This will eliminate the prospect of not levying to the levy limit in fiscal 22 if, in fact, we were to achieve that by the growth in the economy. It would ultimately result in a shortfall, which was something we want to avoid at all costs. So here's a summary. A lot of information. I apologize, but it's a lot of stuff. Like I said, we have a great story to tell. We should tell it and be proud of it. The town of Foxborough continues to maintain a strong financial position by design. Healthy reserves and liquidity, contingent liability funded at the ARC, balanced sustainable spending and service level goals, without general overrides, without where 74% of the communities in Massachusetts don't do that. Despite flat state aid that we're getting overall because of the costs in charter school assessments. Reasonable and balanced budgets, included and excluded debt levels. Water and sewer enterprises fully funded and self-sustaining. Not everybody can say that either, by the way. Stability of the strong position is enhanced by strategic direction that has never been clearer or stronger. Very, very important statement right here. Updated land use master plan. Number one thing you should do. Number two, revitalized economic development committee. Another important thing. 3, stabilizing new regional sewer partnership. You're developing the infrastructure for growth. Centralization of major town functions. All very, very important. Formally adopted financial policies. Extraordinarily important. Experienced senior management team supported by policy boards that all really care. That is so important. It's driving and supporting not only its appropriate investment in town's assets and service, but in the local economy as well. Despite these achievements, there are still many unmet services. That's why it's important to have the conversation in context. And that's why it was hard for us to get into that discussion during the budget process, because there's so many competing issues at that point. We just want to lay it out here for you that there is still a lot of things that have to be talked about. The combined effect of these interwoven strategies developed and implemented by the town's management and supported by the policy boards is helping to fuel, in large part, the continuing significant private investment and expansion in the local economy of both businesses and citizens. I've spoken directly with Secretary Ash, who was the Secretary of Economic Development for the state. He said, this is the place to be right now. In the entire company, right now. We have to do it right. We ask for your input, and what should we be doing differently? And thank you. I believe that's my last slide. That's what it is. Thank you. So, at this point, what I'd like to do is, and my goal is to be out here by 9 o'clock tonight. So, I don't want to, unless if people, I'm comfortable talking any further than that. It's okay. It's a nice night. It's summertime. I know we're cutting into people's home time, so I appreciate that. So I think I want to start the conversation off by saying, was anybody surprised by any of this? Has anybody heard all this before? Because I think a lot of people have heard bits and pieces, but not necessarily the whole picture, the way we try to lay it out here tonight. And by the way, I want to thank Randy Scollins and Mary Beth and the rest of our department heads that are here tonight for all the work and input that they gave to us. They did a tremendous job. And they make my job easier, by the way. You know, so I just want to say thank you to all of them for doing that, particularly to you. So I want to say, so any thoughts, any reactions to what we just talked about tonight? I mean, I think there are there's a lot of competing discussions that can go on here, and I think we should get them out. And so I'm happy to entertain that process and help serve as referee if you want, so to speak. Any thoughts?
If I may say, first of all, thank you very much for this first financial summit for our town. I think in terms of transparency and communication, it's the right thing to do. On my side, what I written mostly is actually what I saw on page 22, 18, and 16, which is where we generate the revenues and how we spend the money. So it was refreshing to see, if we look at the past years, how much we spent. Page 22, if you got page 22.
Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
See, to me this was important because it shows the past year, how we've been blessed in terms of the money that came in and the growth, how it was spent and the outcome and the future. So I guess here the question is, how do we feel comfortable to see that growth going forward? And the other thing also, in terms of spending, we spend the growth in terms of revenue. And is this sustainable? And do we have to always do that? I'm looking at my own household, right? And I'm sure it's for most of us. We have income coming in. If we spend all of our income, what's left over when we need it?
Right.
For bad days. So again, to me the refreshing part again here is to see that we do have a balance looking at the past and going forward. We're not overspending. But we've again been blessed because we've had a lot of revenues and the growth seems to offset what we spend. But again, I don't see, again, that's probably what we need to see going forward, is how do we find a way to minimize the spending and even grow the revenue more.
Okay.
So to me, these are the key pages.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So just another thought along that line. We talked about it early on in the discussion that the town took a very extraordinary step this past year. Set aside $530,000 to help pay for a future expense that we know we're going to have. We basically did what you just talked about. We didn't spend it all. We set it aside, which is, I think, a good, prudent thing to do. If we can continue to do that, it's a good process to continue on with. If we can do that, continue on in that direction. Sean, you had a comment.
Yeah, Sean Clark from AgCom. I want to build on what Bernard said. I think all of this is what we've been presented for the last year, learned a lot, which is great for the public to see how that operating budgets work. But to build on what Bernard said, I'd like to see more go into stabilization. Anybody that knows me since last September has just heard me say stabilization, stabilization. We're going to talk about doing the borough school projects, and we're going to talk about doing the turf field replacement. I went and visited other towns, sat down with their finance people, their town managers, looked at the structures of how they do it, and they all have stabilization accounts, not just the main one, earmarked for large projects. So they don't end up in a CIP or at a town vote. That way you're building into your commitments. In the borough school is a commitment. So I think we need to build those stabilization things first and create those, and I'm not sure why we don't have that structure in place, if somebody can answer that for me.
So so what I'm hearing is that one of our goals, one of our long-term goals, thank you for doing that. One of our long-term goals should be that we set aside money going forward year on year, if we can, to pay for some of our long-term liabilities. We've done that in many ways, more so than most places have. But some of the long-term liabilities that we know of. So as a way to minimize the impact on taxpayers.
Well, it's done, Bill. This is something that's done as practice. Other towns, again, I went and visited and saw, met with people, different sides of the aisle too. Members of their AgCom or finance boards, the public, and the management side of it. And all of them were in agreement. This is how it's done. And I went through their town reports. They're listed for everybody to see. So at turf field, they may dedicate $100,000 per year. So it's already being built as time goes by. Borough school project, whether it be $1 million, it gets pulled in, put to stabilization first.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else? Yeah, Bob.
One suggestion that I had made a couple of years back was that those of us that are old enough to remember the Patriots when they were not doing so well, we did not have any playoff games or any of that nature. So I had suggested that any funds that we get from playoff games not be put in with the general black hole, as I call it, but put that into a stabilization or a rainy day fund, similar to, as mentioned before.
Okay.
And also that would include maybe World Cup events, any special events from the stadium, not the regular 16-game or 8-game schedule.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, wait for the monkey.
Oh, I have a pretty big enough mouth. Okay, I have a quick question. I'm not sure, I should have been like Bernard and jotted down the page, might have been easier, but, okay, so there were certain things, so I should have said Stephanie McGowan sitting on AdCon this year. There were certain things that when the budget process came up and different people had different things that they focused on. I focused on salaries. With no disrespect to Mary Beth, I brought Mary Beth's salary a few times. Had nothing to do with whose salary was, it was just line items, looking at them. So what I did notice, one of the slides where you said that we want to be between 4% and 5%, I did notice total government was closer to 7%. So I kind of felt like that might have hit what some of us were concerned about, how salaries were growing. No disrespect, Bill, I was
Yeah.
kind of happy to see that the Board of Selectmen, with going through your new contract, was happy to see that they just hit on that 2.5% rather than hitting 4% where they had in the past with some of the bigger ones.
Understood.
And
But just to be clear on that, the salaries did not grow at 6-7%.
No, it was the central maintenance department when we created that and created the
There was a big
maintenance
bump.
that's
fund on some of
what
the
came out of
utilities.
total, that's what came out of total government?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
that's what
what
caused that number to go as high as it did.
Okay, because, when you live in town, obviously you hear things, some you don't know if they are fully true or not, you hear little stories. Now, I did notice that some of the towns that you guys used for your contract, or maybe administration, were certain towns, and I heard that you guys use other towns for other employees. Is that true? And if it is, what would be the reasoning why you wouldn't focus on one set of towns that are similar to Foxborough to come up with whether it's salaries or raises or
Sure.
benefits?
It's a fair question, so let me put some perspective on that. Not every position is the same, all right? So it's easier to when you're looking at public works, say, and say police and fire, those jobs, by and large, are the same. You may have different volumes of work, but by and large, the work is generally the same. So when you compare a core set of towns, those core set of towns would go directly to those types of positions. So you can actually use that. Other positions are not so different. So in other words, certain positions have different levels of authority and responsibility. So therefore, it's best to look at those comparative towns to see where in fact those jobs are being paid. Because there are different levels of authority that vary from town to town in terms of certain jobs. So that's why you look at things differently when it comes to certain positions.
But if it's a municipal position, I mean, every town has a fire department, every town has a police department.
Right, so-
there's a school department.
So as I said, so if you take a look at public safety, there is a set core set of towns that we would use. There's a set core of it's probably the same core that we use for fire as well, and for public works. But for some specialized positions, certain management level positions, you have to look at different, to see if those positions how they compare to what the job actually does. So that there are differences, and they're subtle, but they're also significant in some cases.
But wouldn't you use things like per capita or population, maybe,
The considerations, absolutely.
I know we're unique with the stadium, so I guess maybe Dedham, like from you come from Dedham, having Legacy Place, maybe
Yep.
somewhat comparable to Patriot
Patriot
Place.
Place, yeah.
Or Mansfield would have, having what they have over there.
Sure.
The concert area, things
Yep.
like that. I just was kind of surprised to hear that I just thought it would be a little bit more evenly, well, for lack of a better word, the word around town is that management positions are being looked at towns with more money, where some of the other positions aren't. And,
And that's not universally true.
okay, well, that's what I said, you hear stories,
Right.
whether you know it's true or not.
Right.
And the other thing I noticed, that I already knew a little bit about with having my husband working for the town, I just kind of felt like it's not that I'm opposed to putting more cost for health benefits onto the employee, but I also kind of felt like that's changing dramatically, and I kind of feel like the people who are making moderate salaries their raises aren't going to even cover what the increase is, where higher up positions, 2% for a position that pays higher, 150 or above is a lot more money than your average person making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. So I'm just wondering, like, where the people making those decisions, are those people making that those decisions aren't going to really hurt them as much? It's not that I'm opposed. I know I have a stake in that because I have a family that's going to be affected by that.
Yep.
But just like certain things, like what are the reasons why you're hitting that and not you're hitting more employees than maybe just the management positions, where something like that is going to be that dramatic. And I had one other thing I want to ask about, and Mr. Hatfield will kill me that I'm bringing it up, but do a lot of people realize that the ambulance receipts, where it's good that it's helping fund things, if it were me going to town meeting and it's been said that we need a new ambulance, or a new fire truck. I mean, we all have to replace our vehicles, so they have a lifespan. I would be saying, okay, this is something we need for the town, I would vote for it. But I've had the discussion a couple of times with him and a couple of people. I'm just not sure, like, I feel like we've talked about services for town, and so if you have to be transported by ambulance, you have to pay for that. Whatever your insurance company doesn't pay, where something like if your house were on fire, you don't have to pay a co-pay or a fee. So I didn't understand how the ambulance receipts work till just recently. So I'm wondering, wouldn't that fall under our services? And why specifically, if you're transported by ambulance, do you have to pay? Where if the police will call to your house, you don't have to pay. If your house is on fire, you don't have to pay. So I'm wondering if, either Chief Hatfield could explain a little bit more.
Sure.
Just so the average person understands why. I mean, I happen to know a couple of people in town who've gotten whacked with some big bills that it's hard to pay. And I know we have I've been told we have a system in place, so if you're really at a hardship, but for most people, you may not really be at that hardship level, but to be hit with a $1,500 or $2,000 bill when you need to be you're in a position where you need to be transported because of a medical issue, I'm just kind of curious why that doesn't fall under, we talk about services for our community, why that doesn't just fall under services. So those are two major questions I had.
Chief, do you want to?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of answers to those questions. Somewhere there's a question, but Chief, do you want to?
I don't think I need mine. No, I think that it's a very valid question, and you're not the first one that's ever asked me that. When I got here in 2009, we were getting at the point 80% of our ambulance costs were being paid by taxation. Only 20% was being paid by users. And Sean and I and my liaisons, God bless you guys, you always bring great questions when we have our discussions. Is it a user fee? Yeah, it actually is when you kind of look at it. I'm sure if I was able to take a house fire and go to our insurance carriers and say, well, we're going to hit you for a user fee, That would be quite unique, but it's kind of the same thing. So one of the things that we did is we looked at what was the state laws. And there's been a lot of debate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the last 5 years over how a community deals with their ambulance receipts. And so we went at a level that I felt that we would never be impacted, and that was 200% above Medicaid, Medicare. And I can sit down with anybody and go over that at any time, but it's quite complex. And what that did is it flipped us from 80% from taxation and 20% to the user to 20% to taxation, 80% to the users. Fortunate Foxborough is a solid community, and we bring in about 82% of our ambulance receipts in, 82%. And the other thing that comes into play here is that you brought it up, is that we do look at how does that impact our seniors. It doesn't, because we pretty much level it at Medicaid, Medicare. It's really the ones that are young, healthy, that have insurance that we look at. In regards to the, paying your deductibles, thank you very much. We with our new contract that we have with our new billing company, the first $250, we really don't impact those that can't pay their deductibles up to that $250. And we have hardship case forms. I hate that term, I really do. If I could change it, I would, to something that doesn't sound so harsh. But we're very, very good at looking at every case and dealing with our community. But it's a funding source that we're able to use to help the taxpayers in general. And it is a user's fee. But it does, if you look at the way we've done it, we have saved taxpayers also millions of dollars in the cost of our apparatus. A fire apparatus, the engine, that goes with every truck. And people always ask me that too when we talk about that. That's $575,000 for that truck. It's got a 15-year life. The ladder truck, it's over $1 million, 20-year life. An ambulance, it's running us about $300,000, has about a 5-year life. But what we've done is we've come through a process of creating a mechanism that allows us to keep that cost from the taxpayers and using this alternative funding source.
So there's another piece of this that you didn't mention, Chief, and I'd like you to talk about this. So based on the fact that we provide a ambulance rescue service, given the fact that we host a lot of folks come from all over the country to come to this location, is that something that we as a town should be paying for, given that scenario?
Right.
So, because it is a user scenario.
Right. You're talking about a community of 17,000 people.
Right.
We're doing over 1,700 calls a year in transports. And that's not taking into consideration the events at Gillette. When we have an event at Gillette, we have a private ambulance service, because they're bringing me 9 to 15 ambulances for their event. So we're not impacting our assets that are here to take care of our community. But that's also a fact that we have a lot of visitors here. Up at Patriot Place, on 495 and 95. Our call volume for accidents have spiked. Thank you for the cell phones. That's my big. And so all of this revenue is keeping us from having all these spikes in other aspects of our community.
And for not impacting the town in terms of revenue source.
Right.
In that regard. So,
But what I feel like, if you have certain taxpayers, if you needed to be transported by ambulance, you're saying you're taking the burden away from the taxpayer, but you're hitting some taxpayers. I understand, and I don't know if you can have, if you live in town, that you don't pay above and beyond what your insurance pay. I mean, I'm not saying it for it to be a freebie.
Another valid point.
You know.
That has been challenged in the United States. That has been challenged in communities that used to have policies that gave discounts to residents, was lost in the courts because the insurance companies said that they were being discriminated against. That's where that stupid buzzword of hardship came out. It's because of that. So, it's always a valid point. I can sit down with anybody and spend hours talking about it. But I feel that Looking at what's been going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, looking at what's going on here, we are still doing good by our residents, by our businesses, and kept everything at a point that, that really is the best financial system that we should be using for the fire department and our EMS services.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Mary Beth, you want just quickly to address some of the salary issues?
I just wanted to address Stephanie's questions, which are very, very good ones. So I'm kind of going in reverse. You asked about the assessment for health insurance, where employees are shouldering a little bit more of the burden. The town adopted probably 5 years ago, Chapter 32B, Section 21 through 23. What that means is that we're required to benchmark against the GIC, which is the state plan. And the way that we do that is we negotiate health insurance with a member of each of the bargaining units in town and school. So the town had a 3-year agreement that went along. Last year we decided to make no change. And then for this current year, with an effective date of September 1, we just went through the process. It's an extremely laborious process with several notifications. We held 3 informational meetings, and then we had a 2-meeting, we had bargaining for 2 meetings, and we were able to agree. So what happened was we get complete weighted votes from all of the unions to decide what health insurance plan we could do. We have to measure against the GIC. This year, the GIC is going to a $500 and $1,000 deductible plan. Fortunately for us and for our employees, the timing was such that we had to benchmark against the GIC's older plan. So we went to a $300 and $900 deductible plan. We're saving about, our rates were supposed to go up 5.8%, and we're saving 3% by doing this new plan. So in fact, health insurance is going up more like 2.8%.
2.8%.
But 2.8%. But we did have a unanimous vote by all of the unions.
To support
And
that.
we had to, let the state know under this Chapter 31, Chapter 32, 21 through 23. So it's a long process. We couldn't afford to keep going the way we were going because it was a 5.4% increase for everybody, and with salaries not growing at that rate, it is a hardship for employees. So by negotiating this new plan, we can only hope that maybe we'll be able to get 3 more years out of it. It's a long process for everyone involved, so that's how we came about this new plan. The previous plan had a deductible of $250 and $750, so we've gone to a deductible for employees for $300 and $900. So I hope that helps to answer the question.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, the question about using comparable communities, it's a really good question. Because we're still in bargaining with one of the units that's involved in this, I can't specifically comment because it's kind of a strategy, although we have involved the union in the process. I can speak to the comparable communities we used for the management plan over a year and a half ago. We participate in salary surveys with a group of communities. A consultant did a rather expensive study for the town of Walpole, costing about $30,000. Because we participate in that study, we get a copy of the results. So we were able to submit that to the Board of Selectmen using Walpole's Communities, who is a comparable for us, and show them the survey. They incorporated about 19 communities in that. So that's what happened with the management study. What we typically do with, in general, because it can't specifically speak to an open contract, is we use the town's tried and true comparable list. For 15 years, the town has used them to measure against tax rates, property assessments, per capita income. There's a general comparable list of communities, and that's who we used in general for all of our collective bargaining.
And ultimately, that was the group that we used for the management team.
So the management team was
as well.
those 14 communities plus 5 more that Walpole used. And the only reason we did it was because it was a vetted, valid compensation study. I can tell you for the town manager study, we asked the Board of Selectmen, because now that it's settled, I can talk about it, in executive session, how would you like us to measure comparables? And they said population. So what we did is we got communities from 14,000 to 22,000 who had town manager form of government, and that's how we measured to come up with the town manager salary comps. So usually there's a formula, that can be documented, and when at all possible, we use that list that's been on our website for probably 15, for as long as we've had a website. So,
Well, that's good to
I
know,
hope that
because,
helps.
the average person, we don't know, for me, you would think, I know there's gotta be a way to figure this all out, but
Mhm.
for me, you think, okay, well, if you're zeroing in on communities, you think it would go across the board,
Yeah.
Right.
so,
So this is what's important about these kind of discussions, dispel the rumors,
yeah.
right? Let's put some facts against those rumors.
Well, that's why,
Right? So
that's why.
that's why
because
it's a
ask
fair
the question. I don't like,
Absolutely.
I don't wanna, you don't wanna
No.
be thinking back, I'd rather you explain it to me, that's good.
Don't take it personal, don't worry about it.
No, nobody, we're
Right.
happy you're asking.
All right.
Should I get the
Yeah.
light, Phil?
Yeah, I'll hand this back to you, how's that?
Being that way. Are those chairs available?
Yeah, anybody want to sit in front? Yeah. I noticed everybody sat in the back of the room tonight, is that by design?
So Seth Ferguson, I'm also on the advisory committee. Maybe I'll stir the pot a little bit, but I'm definitely a pro-growth guy. So I think we have a fairly unique opportunity in Foxborough in that people love the small town feel. And we have our commercial areas kind of on the ends of the town, so we avoid a lot of that traffic through traffic, and we get to maintain the small town feel and have the commercial. So I'm on board with the growth in Forbes and down at Patriot as well. The center of town, we used to call it Uptown when I was a kid. I don't know if kids still say that anymore, but Uptown starting to look a little bit challenged with a couple of the empty buildings, and I know there's a committee to dealing with the development of Uptown, the center of town. But what can we do up there? Just want to have a little discussion about that. What are some of the limits? If it's, there's options, retail, commercial, residential. I know residential scares some people maybe, but just have that discussion and get the temperature and what people have the appetite for up there.
So that's a very good question, thank you for raising that. So, Paige, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here, so, because I know that in the planning board, I've been working on this for a long time, so. Paige, you want to just give a couple
Sure.
examples and ideas?
Well, it's a timely question.
Can you do that?
Thank you. Downtown is a challenge, and just so everybody knows, Foxborough is not alone. I mean, the whole retail community and the environment of how we purchase has changed, obviously, since 1950s on up. But people still remember the older downtowns. They remember when you would go downtown and get, a cup of coffee, a meal, bump into someone at the hardware store. So we are grappling with a changing environment. How we're looking at it now has been lately, and as reflected by the zoning changes that were done for the downtown, is mixed use. As you mentioned, the housing is one of the key components that is identified in the master plan. And the zoning has been revised. The planning board, before my time, revised the zoning to accommodate this mixed use. There are still controls in place, but there are special permits to allow the board to look at unique provisions, height and such. And on the positive side of things, we're seeing some turnaround through the investment by the town in the sewer downtown. We are now have, the planning board was just approached last meeting to have a developer who's looking to put 46 units downtown. It looks like it's a firm possibility. That's exciting. We have the fire station funeral home, and while it looks like nothing's happening, there's actually a lot happening. That sewer upgrade is a huge benefit, and we are now, I have 7 people on a list that just called out of the blue saying, how can we get a hold of that fire station, what can we do? So now it's to the point where the town's gonna get to decide what they want out there. Is it residential with a mix of restaurant? How many residential units? And that's a conversation that the planning board is undertaking and really trying to look at from a community character point of view. So, and as Bill mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're looking at the parking and trying to create a business climate where the perception, sometimes the reality is what is perceived, and people perceive there's no parking out there, but we know there is. So we're trying to work around that, and that's what the EDC's been working on, and we've gotten some grants, and it's a slow process, but we are focused on that. And I know there's some concern about downtown development, so that's something that will have to be balanced.
Right.
And I think I
So-
should pass it on to Kevin, because Kevin, you've been here forever, and.
You look pretty good, Kevin.
I'm married to the Spear Girl, she's been here forever. But I mean, Paige is right, and we are now starting to get a lot more interest in not just the fire station and the funeral home, but people who own existing buildings are looking to repurpose them, either take them down and build new that will accommodate commercial and residential uses around the common. Gordon and John Rhodes worked very hard on taking a look at a revised traffic pattern around the common that hopefully will make the flow a little bit better for people. And there are some new things happening. I mean, we're now, as you may have read in the paper, I mean, it appears that Obashan sold the store. I thought they were leasing it to the O'Reilly people for the auto parts, but apparently they've sold it to them. So hopefully they'll do a very nice job in refurbishing the building and making it what they want to do. I know that they had questions about how much they could actually expand the structure on the property. So we'll see where that goes. I think that there's a lot that's happening. It's a little bit at a time. I mean, I think everybody wishes that Forbes development was moving a little faster than it is, but it's moving. And it's a big thing to build a 4-story hotel and a Starbucks and a bank and several restaurants on the site, and then retain your existing tenant base there while all that's going on. So it takes time, and I think that we're all going to be happy in the final analysis. I think that if we do get some of these other things happening, it will help to rejuvenate the main strip on Central Street. We get more people who are living downtown and willing to walk to the customers, not worry so much about, do I have to find a place to park my car? And if different stores or new stores come in that attract people, then maybe people will go back to the way it was here, 40, 50 years ago, where they parked their car and they went to Tilly Cutler's, and then they went to the coffee shop, and then they went to different places, and they frequented those businesses. So, I don't think everybody wants to drive to the mall anymore, that's for sure. A lot of people obviously still are very involved in using their iPad or whatever to shop with Amazon and companies like that. But not everything works that way, and you can't go get your local cup of coffee that way. You still gotta go downtown or go to the Starbucks or wherever you go and do those things. Frequent the Dunkin'. And so I think that one of the things that Bill was pointing out about our community is, because I've been on the AdCom and on a number of other committees over the years in this town, we have always shown a very responsible level of growth in terms of our economic growth. We've never been, as he said, we've never had an override here. Every other town around us just about has happened. Mansfield's had tons of them. And people who live in Mansfield seem very happy about how their community is shaped up and what's happened there, but they took that route. We did not. We haven't grown as fast as them in terms of population either. We didn't build as many houses. There's been a much more controlled kind of effort. I think that what the potential for what could happen on Route 1 is extraordinary. I mean, for a long time, our zoning up there under the S1 district was relatively restrictive, and we're working very hard right now to change those regulations. Not just, the Patriots have a special situation there, so they were given a lot of things by right, but now we're trying to recreate some of those types of items for the rest of the S1 district, or whatever the new district is going to be called, so that people who own land for many, many years will not have as difficult a time developing that. And there's a lot of things in the works right now. I think hopefully we'll see them either this fall or next spring, and let the community vote on them. I think everybody will be happy.
Great, thank you.
Well, there was a couple references to ample parking in the center of town, and it was mostly street parking.
Yes, so, well, there are parking lots in the rear of the buildings along Central Ave. There is some parking in the back.
Oh, okay.
All right, but the unfortunately, the wayfinding signs are not always as good as it could be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to find out, what's the best way to identify that. So just a couple other thoughts, and along what Kevin said and what you were all alluding to. one thing that's really, really important to all of us, and we should never lose sight of this, quality of life. Quality of life. Now, that means a lot of different things to different people. And you want to take away, you don't want to lose the mic there. So, it means a lot of different things to different people, but I will tell you what it does mean to me. And then you guys can define how you want to define it. Good services, good schools, good recreational opportunities, good cultural opportunities, a safe community, a place where you can raise your kids and raise your family and feel good about it and enjoy the surroundings that you're in. We want to maintain that because that's why people come to Foxborough. And what's interesting about Foxborough is the fact we have extraordinary opportunities here beyond just that. So we have to be careful that we try and keep those in the right places and not mix it so that becomes somehow derailed or going in the wrong direction, that we don't want that to be a problem. So here's what the formula is. The master plan addresses that. We've created these 4 nodes of development that sort of tells us this is where we need to develop. This is the areas that require more attention for our economic development needs. And these are the areas that we should try and preserve and protect. And that's why we have a lot of conservation land, we have green spaces, we've got some really nice recreational opportunities that most places don't have. So I think that's really, it's a balance. We've said it a couple times, we've said it like 4 or 5 times tonight. Balance is the key word here. Let's make sure that we continue to do that. Anyone else?
I know we've seen, again, the revenues and all.
Just trying to pronounce all right. Yep, okay. So people at home can hear this, yes. Okay.
By the way, my name is Bernard Dumont and I live in Summerfield. I've been in Foxboro for close to 20 years. In line with the revenues and the expenses, I'm not sure if we have like a snapshot of what would be the equivalent of the town's, let's call it considered balance sheet, just to have an idea of the cash level, the debt, basically just a snapshot to see today what do we look like at a consolidated level. Maybe Randy has that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not complex, but in that same format that we see here on a one-page table.
The Division of Local Services does provide a lot of information comparabilities for.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we definitely have plenty of balance sheets, so I'm happy to actually publish them in the annual town report, every year as well.
We can have that information. That's easy. Anyone else? Yep. Tom? Yep.
Tom Freeman, Kersey Road. I've been on the board now, on the AdCom board, since we're all, who hasn't voted for me as AdCom board? Been on about 6 out of the last 9 years, and I must admit, and I see right around us, I see about 5 other people who've chaired the board in the past here. I don't think I've seen a board or been part of the board that has been as engaged and as active as I've seen this past year. With a lot of new faces, a lot of new questions being asked of just about every single committee that came before us. I mean, people that probably came in thinking this is a pass-through, check off, and we're there for half an hour. I can't remember how many meetings we went 3+ hours. And it wasn't just to be aggravating, it was to be insightful and to be thorough and to meet every question. And I think all the committees were patient enough to bear with us to get through this. Even the committees that came back 3 times to answer questions. And I think that speaks to the transparency that was a word that kept coming up all year long. That transparency is why we're here tonight. That was mentioned on several occasions, several different meetings, that we should have something like this, a summit meeting, whether it becomes an annual thing or even a semi-annual thing, it's something to work out. So Bill, Randy, Mary Beth, and your staff, thank you for helping put this together, this presentation together. And also, from the time that I've been around here, seeing people around this room, that a lot of people did start here in the AdCom committee. And I think the experiences they've had on this committee and understanding the inner workings of what goes on here in this town has extrapolated to other departments in this town. And I think that's very important and adds some cohesiveness to when we're discussing such topics as finance and budgets and projections, that we all pretty much know where we come from. A lot of people have already dealt with it
from the AdCom side, they're able to take that to their other departments and know kind of what the townspeople are expecting from them when they go to their other committees. So I think this town breeds a desire for continuity and for a stable environment, a place that people want to grow and develop and raise a family. It's also a town that I brought up, and talk to the Council on Aging, they'll tell you that this is a town that people don't want to leave. We have a situation here where a limited stock of housing is being put in the market, but people aren't moving out as soon as they kind of retire. There may be some snowbirds, but there are a lot of people that have stayed here because they built a community that they want to stay around and live with. So you have to take that into consideration too as well. And so once again, I just want to say that it was a very enjoyable, thorough year, and I hope we can have a lot more of this type of discussion and it breeds more cohesion for a town, for a community.
So thank you, Tom, and I think it's really important to note too, there was one other thing that you just touched upon, that one of the things that we didn't mention here tonight, and I'm sure there are others, and I want everybody to leave this meeting tonight and go home and think of some other issues, and we'll come back. We'll come back again probably around September, because I want to give you some time to think about this in September before we start the budget process, after everybody comes home from vacations and stuff like that. But think about the fact that there are a lot of people that are 55 and older that want to stay in this community but can't, because there's no place else for them, and are staying here because there's no place else for them to go. We need to diversify our housing, and that's something I know the planning board is trying to work on with, with various opportunities to try and address zoning that allows for that. Investors are looking at that possibility, but we've got to have the right scenario for that. But what happens when that happens, when we develop that, is a ripple effect. Those 55 and older folks that move into a new type of housing create new opportunities for the younger generation to move in. And then that just has another ripple effect in terms of school impacts and everything else that goes with that. It's not a bad thing. We just need to be aware of that, but it's also what builds the quality of life scenarios that people want to be. It's the cradle to grave type of thing, where people grow up here, they stay here, and they die here. And that's okay, because that's a sign of a good solid community when that happens. I want to do one thing that's a little different. I'm going to put this person on a little bit of a spot here. Chief Baker's one of the newest members of our staff, and so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Chief.
We're almost done, and
but he's come from a very wide range of experiences, and I'm very blessed to have two probably the best public safety leaders in the country, I think, personally. I think they both do a tremendous job. So, but Chief, I'd be curious to get your perspective, because you've seen other places, and is there anything in particular, first of all, do you see this kind of discussion going on? Have you seen this kind of conversation going on in other places? And if you have, what else should we be doing?
Well, my observation is just all the positive comments are well placed. This is a very extraordinary community. I've said it repeatedly how grateful I am to be part of it. But I think the intense and detail-oriented AdCom process, the level of cooperation and transparency that you guys get from the departments, all of the attributes that this community has that everybody's been talking about, a financial summit like this, it's just all signs of what a healthy, vibrant community this is with a great future. So I think we have a lot to be grateful for. The one thing I would say about the budget process from a department head perspective that gets lost in these processes is the department heads really never get a chance to talk about what they're not asking for. We get direction from the town manager and the selectmen to come in with conservative budgets, and we do that. But I think it would be useful at a future financial summit to ask the department heads, what don't you ask for? What would you need if you were fully funded to do all the things that you should be doing in public safety or public works or in the schools? Because I think you'd be shocked by that answer. I think there's a lot of things that we're not doing in each of these major disciplines, because we're trying to be cooperative, we're trying to respect the taxpayers' interests, we're trying to keep costs down. But I can tell you from the police perspective, there's a lot of things that I wish we were doing better in support of women victims of domestic and sexual violence, for example. I think the presence in the schools with a single SRO in this day and age is probably inadequate. I think that SRO has way too much responsibility on his plate with the increased activity at the charter school and all the things going on below the high school. So I think that's one thing I'd ask everybody to consider going forward, and maybe it's something we could do in this summit environment, is to talk about what we're not funding, what we could do if we funded all of these departments to their full potential.
Okay, thank you. It's really
My
helpful.
pleasure.
Anyone else?
I think just in tandem with that, I think folks aren't too educated on the things that have improved. Your software systems in the fire department. So I think there are a lot of other areas that could go in tandem with that, with the things that did happen, that folks have no awareness of, but that really benefit them on a day-to-day basis, but they don't really know that they've invested in it. So a little more maybe, and I've had this conversation with Phil too, just a little more sales on where your money has gone, and those improvements that are kind of happening behind the scenes, but really are affecting your quality of life.
Right.
So I have a couple more you could add to your slide.
Great, that's great. That's what I was looking for, is it, because I know that there are, what I find extraordinary to me is the fact that I see this going on on a daily basis, and so I see it so often I forget something. You know, and I really don't want to do that because it's so important. I mean, the fire chief took me through one day and showed me what they're doing with how they're handling all their calls now. It's just, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just amazing to me how the technology that we're using now and the level of response and how, you know, the level of services we're providing, because people want that level of service in this community. I've yet to see one person say, don't provide that service to me. Nobody says that. Now, granted, put that in context, that people don't ask that question very often. Now, you don't get asked that, but I will tell you that people like the services they get in this town, and they rarely ever come and complain to me about the services they get. Usually what I get is, you need to do more. And not do less, we need to do more. So we can't do that responsibly and make sure the tax rate stays low for everyone to stay here and feel comfortable. What we have to do is put it on balance. And then, so that's why we have to make choices. And that's why we have to be more efficient in how we deliver those services. We have to be regionalized. We have to do more things with technology. You know, we now are going to have a building where we can actually build our own building. You know, so I mean, that was the one huge improvement that we're going to get, you know, starting in the next few weeks, is the ability to hold meetings in our own buildings. Because and trust me when I tell you folks, you build it, they will come. I've seen it time and time again. People will use that building more than you've ever dreamed possible, because it is such a great facility, and you're going to be very proud of it when you see it. I'm extremely grateful for Bill Uke and his efforts and the committee's efforts, that committee members that are here tonight, for all the work they've done. It's just an extraordinary facility. So,
Just to highlight on that, build it, they will come. The Lane property has been fantastic.
yes, and again, nice improvement done through cooperative and voluntary efforts that people come out as, I'm just floored by it. It's amazing to me. Really exciting for me to be part of that whole, and the efforts that all the voluntary groups and Jim DeVellis had a lot to do with that, like Lane property and everything. It was just an extraordinary thing. And I also don't want to forget Bill Caspara in the back of the room, who's been watching over that town hall project like it was his own. and he's done a very good job of managing it, so I'm very grateful for that too. So, Sean, you want to say something?
I just had one thing I wanted to add. I think the reason why some of us on AdCom were so aggressive, and what my personal beliefs are, and I'm prepared to bring back some more information. We're still gathering. It's been a long process. I spent a lot of time on it, trying to make sure it's correct. But I think the disconnect between the public and the town is strictly based on the percentage of growth of town government year over year over year, and then the compounding of that. I don't know if, all indications point that the public has not kept up to that same pace with their own income, household income, family income in that time frame. And that, I think, is the disconnect. So, I'm not prepared to present that, but I do feel very strongly that all indications show that. And that's not just Foxborough. I left one meeting of AdCom one night and was floored, went back and spent till 2 a.m. on the computer, looking up and finding out it wasn't just us. So sometimes that proposition 2.5 plus the, the increase in valuations, leading to a 4% increase in your town local, budgets, it can hurt homeowners if they're not able to keep up. That's all. I don't know if that's valid or not.
It's a fair point, so I think what we should do is break that down.
And I'm trying.
Do a better job breaking that down, but work with us to do that, because we have a lot of resources that we can bring to that discussion and show you, and show the entire public how that works. Because it's really important that they see that and understand that as well. So, sorry.
It's an accurate observation. I just want to say the DPW, or the chair of the Water and Sewer Commissioners and the DPW director put together a pretty extensive document that I think we'll be putting online tomorrow along with this presentation, which in essence goes to the heart of what you're talking about, and the key takeaway from their message on all of the initiatives that they've been doing in DPW over the last 5 years is this town has been grossly underinvested in its infrastructure across the board. So yes, you are seeing growth in the investment in this community because of that. And I think when you read the thoughtful summary that they put together, just on DPW alone, you'll have a pretty good understanding, if you don't already, about that. And I would say that that applies in so many other areas across the town, is that this town has been underinvested because we haven't had means. We just haven't.
And Randy, I'm not arguing that at all. When I got on AdCom, I learned a ton about the realities of our accounts and how that works. It still doesn't take away from the fact that what people pay, compare, what they pay in taxes and what they earn in the percentages. I'll give you an interesting stat, and I'll end it with this. Going online, if you look up, Foxborough, 4% of your income on average in Foxborough goes to your property tax. In the town of Wellesley, Weston, it's in our property tax, I think it's $5,000 average per household, somewhere around there. Six. In the town of Weston, as an example, it's $17,000 per year. Okay, but the difference is that's only 1% of their income. So you can look at it a couple different ways. But if you went up to Weston and you said, we're going to bill you 2%, they would lose their mind. That's a big chunk of money. So the percentages become, if you said to 4% equal to us, that becomes the percentages are all part of it. A pie is a pie. So I think that's what I'm trying to convey, and I get what you're saying, and I understand the whole town's philosophy, the practices. You can't dismiss it. That's all. I think it just needs to be examined and looked at.
I think that's the whole purpose of this discussion, is to say, and also to put facts associated with understandings and misunderstandings in that case. So I think it's really important that, the perspective that we take away from here is that this is a fact-finding mission for all of us. Let's put these things in context and deal with it from that perspective. So we got 5 minutes left. It's 5 minutes to 9. Bob, you want to say something?
Some things get lost. One of the things that people don't realize is in any of our positions, whether it's the planning board, the Veterans Administration, town clerk's office, we have state obligations, we have statutory obligations. I have to run an election. It doesn't matter how much it costs, we have to run it, and whatever we have to pay is what we have to pay. And that message does not get across. And even though the town clerk's office, for instance, doesn't generate a lot of income, we have a lot of statutory obligations. We now have public records that we have to deal with. We didn't have that when I first came into the office. We have document management that we're just scratching the surface on, and we're grossly behind on that, but we don't have the money to meet our obligation. We don't have CPA funds like a lot of towns. We're doing the best we can with what we have. So to Bill's point, that side of the story doesn't get told a lot, and that's really, that has to come out more. We have to do a better job of telling that story.
Right. Okay. Very good point. Thank you. Right?
Brain Group. I had served on an advisory committee a long time ago, and, learned about the history of conservative fiscal management of the town through that committee. And I think because of those many years of responsible spending, obviously this is where we are. So really appreciative of all of the folks who have contributed to that. I think here, there was a slide that had a list of what still needs to be done. And hearing all of the needs that are out there and knowing that there's a crunch on that pie, I think it would be really helpful to hear, like in the fall summit potentially, if we could hear more about what the departments really do need to be operating effectively, not just like really inexpensively, but effectively, but then try and balance that with that list of items that still needs to be addressed and see, maybe we can have a more in-depth discussion on some of those things, because those are some pretty big topics, regionalization, fire substation, things like that will, just continue to compete with the day-to-day operational needs that, because they've been so conservatively underfunded for all these years, we're seeing the beginning of that catching up, but it's a shock to the system of, I think, the town, because
It is, yep.
of
No
the way
question
we
about it.
have been managed in the past, so.
That's a very good point. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up because I said I'd try and get everybody out of here by 9 o'clock tonight. So let me just say, first of all, thank you all for being here, because this is public engagement at its highest level. And it's really, really important to have, because when we try to put the budget process together, we need to know what we're doing from your perspective, not from our perspective, but from your perspective. Granted, we use our management practices, our best practices that we've done for many, many years, but still, at the end of the day, it's what you want, not what we want. So, again, I'm glad we're having this conversation now, because it'll help put things in context when we start presenting budget numbers for you in the fall. We understand that this is a conservative community, so we want to stay conservative, and we want to go beyond that arc, if you will, because I know that, but yet there is a certain level of pain to try and get it right. And so I think that's what we're experiencing right now, is that we're recovering from a lot of the years that we didn't spend where we should have spent. But now we're spending it to the level where we should be, and we're still not there yet. However, that doesn't mean we're going to go off in a direction that just really makes it so expensive people can't live here. That's the balance we're trying to strike. So here's your homework assignment. It's 9 o'clock. Go home, write down whatever came to your mind tonight, and hold on to that thought, and then continue to add to that list until the end of August. And I'll be right back to you at the end of August asking for those lists to come back. Because then we're going to start preparing some new slides. And then we can go from there. All right? So again, I want to thank you all for coming out on this beautiful summer night. Tomorrow's the first day of summer, everyone. Let's all enjoy our summers and keep up the good work. Derek?
Yes, actually, normally I wouldn't do this, but while you're all trapped and you actually asked this question. Okay, so currently serving, if you did in the past, but you're not, who here is not a member of a town board and also isn't in a school or a town employee? Is there anyone here who matches that? Excellent. But wait, you're the head of the, Jared, you're the head of the cultural council.
We don't get paid.
No, you're a volunteer. No one does. Yeah, so can I just get hands for how many civilians again? Okay, cool. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I see 4 civilians. Got it. Thank you guys.
What's important about that, Sarah? What's important about that comment?
Yeah.
It's on TV.
Yes.
So a lot of people, I think, would want to watch this and see how it comes to and how the conversation goes, because these are all the town's leaders in one room.
Yeah. No,
so that's what's really important.
There was no editorializing. I just need to know if there's any because we have a very involved community.
There you go.
It's none of that.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your summer. Thank you.